Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with another box set review. Just going to go over what's in a box set. This was in my epic Christmas haul video, so we've already seen this once. This is a show I've always loved, but hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And now I have all 7 seasons in a great box set, and that is Tales from the Crypt, the complete 7-season series. This is a show I've been wanting to get for years because the place that I go, the place I've shopped at for 10 years or more at this point, you can get each individual season pre-owned for around $10, which isn't bad. Normally, I've seen this go for like $130, but on bonanza.com, I found this for $35. That's a steal. And what's the great thing about it is that it has all the original like comic book looking covers of the original releases. Because I'm also a big fan of the Tales from the Crypt comic books, which I have one of the newer books up here. Yeah, they kind of did a small revival of it. You can get the EC archives, which is like this thick of original volumes from EC back in the 50s. But anyway, so Tales from the Crypt, because of the movie Creepshow, it was a big hit. It was a sleeper hit, and it's one of my all-time favorite films. It was the first DVD I ever got, one of the first real R-rated horror films I ever saw as a kid. I think I was like 7 or 8 when I first saw it. And even though my love for comic books wouldn't come until well into my 20s, like I bought The Killing Joke when I was 19, but when I was like 23 was when I really started getting into comics. And apart from Batman, you know, horror comics mix 2 of my favorite things, horror and comics. And since Creepshow was such a hit, there was supposed to be a Creepshow anthology show in the vein of like Twilight Zone. It was created by George Romero, who directed Creepshow. But they couldn't get the rights, so they turned it into Tales from the Dark Side, which is another show I got the complete series of. It's in like a one single case. But I always liked Tales from the Dark Side as well. So then in 1989, HBO, who at the time wasn't really known for original TV shows, they were known for movies and sports events. So they decided to make this Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side kind of anthology TV show, and they called it Tales from the Crypt, and built it around the comic book series of the 50s, Tales from the Crypt, which a lot of these episodes are Tales from the Crypt issues and stories, but they're taken from all EC titles, like Haunt of Fear, Vault of Terror, Weird Tales, and of course Tales from the Crypt. And since it was on HBO, they could be a little bit more violent and gory. They could have all the language they wanted. They were sexier and more nudity than what was allowed on regular TV. Like, they were allowed to run wild. And it became a cultural phenomenon. I mean, even though Tales from the Crypt, the comic series, was obviously around, there was a movie in the 70s called Tales from the Crypt that was an anthology. But this was the first time we got this Crypt Keeper, who has now become an icon of horror, voiced by John Kassir. And dead-on humor and horror. Because the comics had tongue-in-cheek, twisted, dark humor, this show incorporated it very well. It's the perfect balance of horror and comedy. And the whole series was produced by very serious or very prestigious filmmakers, like Richard Donner, who directed, of course, he directed The Omen. It's my favorite film of his. But he also directed the original Superman, The Goonies, among other things. Robert Zemeckis, who directed Forrest Gump. Frank Darabont directed some. You had all kinds of directors doing episodes. Frank Darabont directed an episode. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger directed an episode in season 2. And you had a ton of just well-established and up-and-coming actors. Like in season 1, which when I bought this, all these inserts were in the wrong cases. This one doesn't really say. But, I mean, you had Emmett Walsh in an episode. You had Amanda Plummer, who plays Honey Bunny in Pulp Fiction. Joe Pantoliano, who was in The Goonies and Midnight Run, which that's one of my favorite episodes. The guy that has a cat's 9 lives put into him. So he does these circus things where he dies and comes back. Always a twist ending, like in Tales from the Crypt. Twilight Zone. But I mean, you had people like Demi Moore, Patricia Arquette, John Lithgow, Benicio del Toro, Kyle MacLachlan. Did I say John Lithgow already? Probably. Don Rickles, Bobcat Goldthwait, Harry Anderson. I mean, kind of like The Simpsons. I mean, people wanted to be guest stars on this. The first episode had Will Sadler, Roger Daltrey as singer for The Who, Steve Buscemi, Tracy Lords, Martin Sheen, Billy Zane. Let's see, there's John Lithgow, which is kind of a unique episode because eventually the Crypt Keeper had all these like themed openings, and he's full of dark puns. Even if you don't like puns, they're kind of funny. But that episode was the Lithgow episode is called You Murderer, and it was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who directed Forrest Gump. So it had a Forrest Gump opening, and they did the joke about how Forrest Gump had CGI'd dead famous people into Forrest Gump to make it look like they were real. And they did that with Humphrey Bogart in that episode. But there's also Hank Azaria, Wayne Newton, Corey Feldman. Just almost everybody. Like, that's actually Daniel Craig. That's Ewan McGregor. You also, I don't remember if it's a DVD-ROM or if you can actually do it on your TV, but they have virtual comic books, like actual issues. And I love all these covers because they all look like comic books. Season 1, which this only had 6 episodes, but the rest all have, I think, 18, at least 14 to 18 episodes. Season 2, 3, 4, 5. I've already shown 6, and season 7. Big fan of this show. Again, and the thing about this is, like, probably my favorite episode, the one with the guy that dies in circus acts and comes back. You know what the twist is. it's pretty obvious what the twist at the end is. But even if you know the twist, it's the journey of how you get to the twist. And it, like Twilight Zone, it's usually people that deserve it. They're tales of morality, which I really like. Those are some of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes, the Tales of Morality. From what I've seen, there's not really any special features as far as like documentaries or anything like that. I haven't really gone through each disc yet, but on the backs of all of these, as far as special features, just sometimes there's commentaries on certain episodes, even with John Kassir as the Crypt Keeper. A Tall Tales panel. Okay, so there's like a seminar where people talk about it. A panel discussion of the reunion. A music video. Bringing the Crypt experience to radio. Behind the Screams shockumentary featurette. That's on season 2. I'm not really sure how long that featurette is, but this is a great collection. If you're a fan of this show, if you have the money, it's definitely worth it. Which I can't really say that because I found it like $100 cheaper than it normally is. But I've always been a fan of horror anthologies. And I owe that to Creepshow, which, of course, Creepshow was inspired by the original comics of this. So, yeah, huge fan of Tales from the Crypt. Music is usually done by a different composer throughout many episodes, but Danny Elfman does the awesome intro and outro music. Sounds very much like a Tim Burton, Danny Elfman score. I love, their horror stories, but they got plenty of humor throughout them. HBO, so, it's definitely for adults. Some episodes are really gory. Like the one where the woman kills her husband and throws him into this acid thing and it turns him into soap. Then she washes herself and the acid's in it. She melts. Of course, there's the Killer Santa episode. I've always been a fan of this. And Twilight Zone will always be my favorite show in this vein. But Tales from the Crypt is a lot of fun. And very binge-worthy. So, yeah. Go to Bonanza.com, see if they have any left for like $35, and you won't regret it. All 7 seasons. Great box set. I love this show, and I love this set. I'm very glad to have it. But anyway, thank you for watching. Oh, feel free to let me know what your favorite episodes are. That's one thing I like about having complete series like this. We can have discussions about our favorite episodes and some of our favorite celebrity cameos or guest stars and stuff like that. So yeah, feel free to let me know your top whatever or what your favorite episodes are, and we'll talk Tales from the Crypt. Feel free to do that, especially on my Twilight Zone box set episode video as well. So yeah, Tales from the Crypt. Great fucking show. I love it. Whoops. Beautiful box. And on Bonanza, it's not a bootleg. If it is, it's a very well-made one, but pretty sure it's not a bootleg. So anyway, thank you for watching.